Can you think of a decision that you regret? Who can't, right? I've personally picked the wrong people to date, stayed in miserable jobs for far too long, and turned down jobs that in retrospect were actually probably the better choice. Obviously, we can't go back and change past decisions, but what if you could go forward making better ones? Imagine how much higher quality decisions could change the whole path of your future life. Hey everybody, what's up? And welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about how to make better decisions. When we're talking about decision making, we're actually talking about two separate skills. One is prediction and the other is judgment. Unfortunately, the human brain is not naturally great at either one of these. For example, we have this tendency to put far too much weight on the things that we believe to be true and then base our judgment only on those beliefs. When we really want something, we will find a way to reinforce that our story will turn out differently, even if we've heard about a whole bunch of others' negative experiences. We will rush through making a decision, which causes us to skip examining some of the possibilities that are out there. And then if things really don't turn out our way, we'll stick with a mistake for far too long just because we spent a long time making it. Now, I'm not singling anybody out or trying to bash anyone's decision-making process, but these are currently known pitfalls to the way that the human mind tends to make decisions. But this is actually awesome news because we know what the potential pitfalls are. Pitfalls? Pitfalls. Because we know about these pitfalls, that means that we can go out and make a better decision-making process, which will then lead to higher quality decisions, which means that we're more likely to have positive results. In other words, better decisions equal a better future. In this video, we're going to first break down how you can improve the prediction part of the decision-making process, and then we're going to break down how to improve the judgment part. Both of these are necessary parts in improving your decision-making process. In order to improve your decisions, you have to get better at making predictions. Now, obviously, none of us can tell the future, but what we can do is use current research and previous experiences to try to make a more logical decision, as opposed to putting too much weight on what we want or what we hope will happen. And the first way to do this is with research. Have you ever started a project, got like halfway in and thought to yourself, what have I gotten myself into? You're knee deep and you're realizing that it's taking way too long to do, or it's way harder than you expected. And honestly, if you had known that it was going to be such a pain in the butt, you would have done something completely different, or you wouldn't have done this at all. So every one of the Halloween costumes I've ever made my kids is coming to mind right now. So when it comes to predicting the result of a decision, you need to do your research. Look into what other people have experienced. You can read blogs or consult with your friends or read books or watch YouTube videos. So when you're trying to line up your research with what you want your results to be, remember that unless you have really different circumstances than the people that you have been researching, like you have 10 people to help you with this costume and they did it all by themselves, that your results are likely to be what you found in your research. Now, this sounds like a literal no-brainer. Like, why am I even bringing this up? The reason is that our brain has a natural tendency to look for things that confirm what it already believes as opposed to those that go against it. All I'm saying is that just remember that if you have seen 10 people that say that going through process XYZ is an absolute nightmare and one person says it was a breeze, you are far more likely to have the experience that those 10 people had than what that one person says. So the next tip is to not rush. Rushing through the prediction process just makes you more likely to skip over potential pitfalls, which will then lead to a lower quality decision. And the bigger the decision is, the longer that you need to spend on the prediction process. The other issue is that rushing through the decision-making process can cause you to be stressed. And oftentimes a stressed decision is also a low quality decision. So what you want to do is give yourself the space to think about all of the possible outcomes of your decision and then walk away for a little bit. Seriously, I want you to stop thinking about this altogether for just a little while. The cool thing is that your brain will still be processing all of this information that you've been working through in the background, even when you're not actively thinking about it. And then you might be spacing out in the shower or daydreaming while you make lunch, and another possibility might dawn on you. And then later, after you've had some distance, then you can come back and think about it some more. Giving yourself some space and some distance from the decision-making process will help you see things more clearly, which will, in the end, give you a better picture about your decision. The next step is to revisit and revise. This one is actually almost part of the not rushing your predictions. During the decision-making process, you'll probably be getting new information, and you need to be going back and updating your predictions based on this new information. For example, maybe you've gone out on a few dates with somebody and you have a really good feeling about them, but then you go out on another date and you're starting to catch a couple of red flags. So it's time to go back to the predictions that you've been making about this relationship with your new information and see how that changes things. It can be really easy to want to gloss over red flags when things have been going really well and you've invested a lot of time and energy into making this relationship happen. However, it's a lot better to make an informed decision now than it is to get, say, a year down the line in this relationship with someone that showed you that they weren't going to be a good fit in the beginning, but you didn't go back with this new information and update your predictions. And the last part of making better predictions is basically just being able to come up with some more options. Often when we're trying to come up with a prediction, we want to be exact. For example, maybe you've developed a new product and you're trying to figure out how many units you're going to sell. The thing is that there's absolutely no way to be 100% sure about how you're going to sell something that you've never sold before. So instead, try to come up with a best case scenario, a likely scenario, and maybe a suboptimal scenario. I'm not going to say worst case scenario here because I don't want you planning your future around possible disasters and then maybe worrying about it and then not making your decisions just because you were afraid. Just acknowledge that every decision that you make does come with some risk and think about what you would do if that thing happened, but don't let it prevent you from moving forward. What this exercise does is give you the space to think about what you would do in each eventuality while still understanding that your middle number is still probably the most likely one. And when you're thinking about all of these possibilities, you're likely to come up with potential problems. And when you do, try to come up with at least 3 ways of possibly handling these situations. It is very easy for our brains to get stressed out and then get trapped in this black and white either or kind of thinking. What your brain's doing is eliminating options because it's a lot easier to just decide between 2 things than it is to decide between 5 things. The problem is that this either or thinking then eliminates creativity. By forcing yourself to come up with a 3rd option, you start opening your mind to other possibilities and help break out of this either or inflexible thinking. To help you with opening up your mind against this black or white thinking, don't just think about yes or no, but think about yes or no, but. For example, maybe you have been asked to make cupcakes for the bake sale. I mean, cupcakes are cute and all, but they are a huge pain in the butt, right? But then you feel bad about saying no, even if it's completely unrealistic for you to make these cupcakes. So it could be, yes, I will help you with the bake sale, but I'm gonna have to make brownies or I'm gonna have to buy the cupcakes. Or how about, no, I cannot help you with the bake sale, but I am happy to make a donation for what we think the cupcakes were going to sell for. Or how about, I'll go out and get the cake mix and the frosting and then somebody else can actually make them. Just in those options alone, you have created for yourself 4 different scenarios where you are able to help out but aren't just, yes, I'm going to do it and sacrifice time that I don't have, or no, I'm not, and I'm going to feel like the bad guy. And one last way for you to help open up your thinking is to imagine what would happen if all of the options that you've currently been considering were just gone. Maybe you've been trying to decide between 2 houses. Well, imagine that you woke up tomorrow and both of them had contracts and had been sold. What would you do instead? Would you maybe start looking at condos or build a house or Open up your search area. Even if it turns out that none of these choices is right for you, what this does do is open up your mind to the fact that there are potentially other possibilities out there that might be a better fit for you than what you've been considering. Okay, so the next step in the decision-making process is the judgment. You've just spent a lot of time and energy laying out all of the possibilities that you could have instead of getting stuck in a this or that situation that you may create for yourself or that someone else might try to present you. So now you've got to figure out how to judge which one of these options is right for you. And the first step is to avoid overconfidence. Now, once you've made a decision, I want you to dive into that thing wholeheartedly. But while you're in the decision-making process, I want you to be skeptical, especially of your own thoughts. Our brain's tendency is to sink way too much weight into our own beliefs, which can cause us to take a flying leap off the wrong cliff. To avoid this situation, I want you to stop and think what you would do if you were less sure about your decision. It will feel uncomfortable because we are not good with uncertainty, but this is part of the process. Uncertainty is super uncomfortable, and we will do a lot in order to avoid it. But you can't make a good decision if you're not weighing all of your options equally, even the ones that don't turn out the way that you want them to. So in order to dig into this kind of difficult step, here's an exercise to try. Imagine going out into the future and your decision has failed. Now I want you to imagine your future self explaining to your current self what went wrong. This will help you to see more potential outcomes of the decision so that you're not just focusing on the bright side. Okay, so the next step is to consider your objectives or your goals. Let's face it, not every set of options that we lay out for ourselves is going to be perfect, no matter how long we give ourselves to come up with them. They will all have their upsides and their downsides. But the best way to make sure that they're as perfect as they could possibly be is to be clear on your objectives. I mean, sure, we'd all like the perfect job, right? Great benefits, retirement plan, flexible hours, a boss that isn't a lunatic. But we're probably not going to get that perfect job right out of the gate. So when you're trying to make the decision to switch jobs, for example, consider what your objective is in the first place. Are you looking for more job security? Or are you trying to find a place where you have space to be promoted? Or are you looking for a job that has more flexibility? Consider everything that could possibly be important to you about making this job switch and then rank them. Make sure that the choice that you're making meets those 1 to 3 most important non-negotiables for this job change. Then you can let everything below that be gravy, or it can be something that you focus on the next time that you go to make a big career move. The next step is to compare and contrast. Since you have worked so hard to come up with a good field of options for yourself, now it's time to consider them together, at least 2 at a time. Every decision you're ever going to make is saying yes to something and no to something else. But if you aren't looking at all of your choices together, you can't know what you might be missing out on by making one choice over another. Make sure that you're not only comfortable with the things that you will be getting by saying yes to one opportunity, but you're also comfortable with the things that you would be leaving behind by saying no to another opportunity. For example, by taking a corporate job instead of starting your own business, you are getting job security, but you might be having less freedom. Just realize that if you're only considering what you're gaining with each choice, you're not getting a complete picture of your decision. Just make sure that when you're done, you have compared your winning decision against all of your other options so that you make sure you're making the best choice for you. If you enjoyed this video, you'll probably also enjoy my video about how to stop overthinking and the one about how to stop feeling stuck. Both of those will be linked on the end screen. Before you leave, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps me get this video in front of more people that need it. And make sure that you subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you never miss a video. Thank you so very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. The whole path of your future. Believe, and then we'll rush through decision, which process to be making. This is awesome note. So when it comes to predicting the which will then blah.